Hey all. So Danny Marks here, obviously, and I wanted to talk a little bit today about what's been happening this week in book selling and in bookstores and things like that. Um, and it's not something I see a lot of discussion about in the YA community. I see it a lot in the. I'm on Twitter a lot. I'm at Danny Marks YA over there, but my adult Twitter handle, I actually have, I follow a lot of people and we have discussions about stuff. And yesterday was a hugely depressing day about Borders filing for bankruptcy. Now, I've been talking about it since I've been talking about it for 2 years. But in December, it was looking like it was really going to happen. And in January, there were reports from the Wall Street Journal and other places that it was going to happen. And then this Sunday, as I was leaving a really some awesome couple of days in Denver, I spent doing a reading and a signing up there. The news sort of broke Sunday morning while I was at the airport, and I was looking around, going, "Oh my God, not too good." But then yesterday it was official. So, and I know a lot of you guys shop at Borders, and for some of you, Borders is the only sort of major chain store in your area, or that is, easily accessible. I live up in Washington and near Tacoma, and when I'm looking, I actually looked through there's a list because they're closing 200 some stores. I've heard figures now up to 275 of their stores are going to be closing, which is like half of them. So there's a good chance that the Borders that you shop at, there's a 50-50 chance, basically, that the store you shop at is going to be closing. But I was looking at it, and I was like, well, man, if they close the Tacoma store, there will be no bookstores in Tacoma. And Tacoma is a city of about 200,000 people, surrounded by lots of suburbs that are not included in that figure. We're probably looking at closer to 300,000 people. Luckily, it wasn't closed. That was a big thing, because it really saddened me, the idea that people would only have access to used books, so they wouldn't get the influx of like new authors and things like that, because they would have to rely on what people were turning in. And if there's no place to buy new books other than Amazon or whatever, but it led me to other kind of ideas in my head, which are pretty disturbing. And that's if we're starting to move towards a model where we order all of our books online, where does that put us in terms of bookstores in general? I mean, even used bookstores would take a hit from that, because you can buy used books online as well. But I think what makes me saddest of all, and it's because I love nothing more than browsing. Browsing's a big thing for me. I find a lot of books by looking in the sections where my favorite authors are shelved, and I look around them and see like different things that I would never see. I would never pick up a book by, say, Liz Williams, because her books, she writes a series called Snake Agent, and those are urban fantasy books, but she's a British author. The press that she's with is really small. It doesn't get a lot of attention because it's never out there in the front of the stores. So if I'm not looking in those big sections, I would never have found her. And I love that book. I think it's probably one of my favorite urban fantasies. It's right up there with Stacia Kane's Unholy Ghost series, if any of you read urban fantasy. And that part would be taken away. If we don't have a bookstore to go to look at all these other books that we might be interested in, there's no way to find them on Amazon or wherever. Because when they say, if you're interested in this, you might be interested in these, I guarantee you that the logarithms that they use and things to make those suggestions to you are somehow infected with like publishing. It's called co-op money. What happens is when a publisher wants to push a book, and it's not just that they get the ARCs in the right hands, like lots of book reviewer hands. When they want to do a really big push, they pay for what's called co-op. And like when you walk into a Borders or a Barnes and Noble, and I hope you still will, those books that are in those front carousels and right there in the front of the store, not in the fiction shelves in the back, those books are called co-op books, and that means that the publisher paid Borders or Barnes & Noble or Books A Million or Chapters or wherever, they paid them a set amount of money to leave those books in a stack in the front where you can easily see them for a certain amount of time. And, that's just not something that can happen a whole lot with smaller publishers. So I think that there's co-op going on there. I think it's happening in terms of what you're seeing when when you get pop-ups on the internet and when you get suggestions on the internet from the different book retailers. It makes me sad because it would be very difficult for you to find something that would be different. The other thing is that what I've heard is that a lot of mid-list books, and this doesn't really affect the YA community so much as it affects people who write like paranormal romance or who write urban fantasies or who write mysteries and things that are just very specific genre, lots of adult stuff, is that mid-listers are those people who don't make the big six-figure advances, things like that. They make sort of middling kind of advances, $20,000 a book or $5,000 even. And those people are definitely not going to be seen. If Borders is losing, let's say, if they're losing 275 stores, that means the shelf space, miles and miles of shelf space are now gone. So Borders is going to have to make very, very difficult decisions about what books they order. So they're only going to be able to, really, and I don't see how else they can survive. They're only going to be able to order books that are pretty sure to sell. So they're not going to be able to take chances on debut authors as much. And that includes in YA, very likely. I don't know. And it gets even worse than that. Because it's like, even if I'm not buying a book, I enjoy hanging out in bookstores and the coffee shops that are there. And I've heard that one of Borders' suggestions for how they're going to continue to be successful is that they're going to put wine bars in there. In their stores. And I think that that's actually probably a good idea because, you get a little lubricated. Not you kids, obviously. Maybe. I don't know. Of course I had a few. I was bartending by the time I was 9 anyway. That's probably an only child thing. But anyway, get a little lubricated. You get a little loose with your credit cards. You buy a few more books. Whatever. That it's something that they can do. But I really love hanging out at bookstores. I wrote my entire second book in a bookstore. And it just saddens me that one day that wouldn't be there. It would just really kind of devastate me. And I love the idea of ebooks, and I just recently bought a Nook, which hasn't come yet because I bought it at a sale price that it was just like apparently blew up, and so it's going to take like 2 weeks to get here. But whatever. $79.99 for a Nook. Come on. That's pretty damn cheap. Anyway, so I just want to know, like, from you guys, what would you do if there wasn't a bookstore around? Obviously, you'd order your books online. But, there's a certain nostalgia to just being around books and, the smell of them and things like that. What if they just weren't around anymore? What if it got so bad? And I hate to be, sort of a Debbie Downer, but what if it did? What if it got so bad that there just weren't bookstores anymore? What if everything had to be done online? Or what if it was only ebooks and there were no paper books anymore? I don't know. How would you handle that? Can you imagine that? What would it be like? It's very upsetting to me. Anyway, that's it for today. What am I currently reading? I wanted to do a currently reading thing. I'm currently reading Slice of Cherry by Dia Reeves and Hold Me Closer, Necromancer. So those two books. And I'm liking both, oddly enough. So anyway, and I was going to get around to doing one of those reading habits things because I've seen very few people that actually read 2 books or 3 books or whatever at the same time, and I'm one of them. So anyway, that's it.